We're going to move to Sam now, and she's going to talk about how do you create the concept.
All right, the concept, yeah, it's and this is one of Jill's lines, and I steal it all the time. It's not easy, and it is never perfect, never. Okay, so don't even assume that if you've got a nice 6-month project, you're gonna hit start to finish in perfect clarity. It's just not going to happen. So once you've accepted those facts that A, you're going to have to really do all this work up front for all this collaboration Jill's been talking about, and it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be friendly, it's not going to be pretty, all right? And then you also have to accept on the back end, you're not going to get it right. There's going to be things that you screwed up that you're going to have to mea culpa and go and fix, right, as soon as we open the doors. You're going to get there, okay? So once you've accepted those two things, you can actually start planning, all right? And so I am a huge proponent of the plan, okay? We've already talked to the point that technology and medical equipment and construction timelines aren't even remotely aligned. Like, they're not. So you can plan around this, right? We know that new technology comes up every 2 or 3 years, right? I get a new medical device, where's my GE friends, about every 6 or 7 years, right? And then it takes Jill a good 7 years to build a whole new building, all right? We know that at a certain point in the process, a decision needs to be made, okay? Based on the timeline of the opening of the building, based on go lives, whatever that day is, all right? You have to make that decision based upon the information you have, okay? Now, that decision's hard, because you only have the information you know. Jill's trying to get you to think 5 years in the future of what's going on, right? I only know about the technology I have today, and yet maybe we're going to implement Windows 7 next week, okay? We're going to make that decision. It'll be great. But you have to make a decision. Fundamentally, you have to. You have to do it based on your collaboration. You have to do it with the best knowledge that you have. But you don't have to do it blindly. You know how to risk mitigate. You know how to think about what the consequences of that decision may be and what the integration path may look like. So as long as you take the time and put time in the plan to appropriately vet that type of technology and make that decision to the best of your ability at that time, you're going to get it right 9 times out of 10, okay? The other problem, though, is once you've made that decision, you can't change it, okay? Because Jill will come yelling at you because she's got to change her construction plans and somebody's already put a plug in the wall and now we got to move it 6 feet. No. You're done. You made that decision, okay? And that is probably the hardest part, is sticking with that decision, okay? There really has to be a preponderance of evidence of something you really messed up to go ahead and make that change. Now, I'm going to tell you it happens. We've done it. We've made changes, and Melita will actually talk to one of the larger changes we've made in the pavilion after it opened. But you really have to stick with that decision. If you don't, your 7-year building is going to be 3 years behind schedule. And then you're going to make that decision again, and you're going to make it again, and you're going to make it again, and you're never going to open that building. Okay? So it's very hard to do, but you really have to use the information you have, make a decision, and stick to it. The other thing that's been a theme through this entire panel discussion this morning and this afternoon is really the common ground, okay? When I came into biomed, I learned my biomed stuff, right? I went through school, I learned all my techie talk, I got my own jargon. You then get dropped in this environment where I've got to learn the IT people have got to learn the biomed. I never knew how to read a drawing before I met Jill. Now I can flip through drawings and pull out everything I need to on a big architectural plan. That nomenclature's got to be there. And so in that collaborative group, you've really got to support and help each other grow and learn all of that stuff that is way outside of your boundaries, okay? I still think I talk IT, and I look at John and I wink. Like, I know what I'm talking about, right? But you have to be able to at least understand the basics, all right? So that you don't think a patch cable is something that has to do with a coronary artery graft. No. That just can't happen, okay? But you also have to be willing as a person to say, hey, all right, I'm in this meeting with you. You've said this word now 3 times, and I have no clue what you're talking about, okay? I need you to explain this to me in something that I understand. So you've got to kind of put yourself out there as well. You've really got to be willing to learn outside of your field, okay? And probably last but not least is you really have to put the clinician first. And so this is very hard for me, right? I'm an engineer. I'm very process oriented, okay? I work with clinicians on a day-to-day basis. They're very people oriented, okay? It took me a long time to understand that they are the point of view we really all have to look from. Okay? If and we did this in the pavilion, it took me a very long time to do this. If I'm a mom, right, I start all my stories out now. Okay, I got my technology hat on. If I'm a mom, what do I want to see, right? I'm in the pavilion, I'm having my baby. What does my experience need to be? That needs to be all of our language. And so you have to understand at least enough of what that nursing workflow looks like. I'm not a nurse. I am never going to claim to be a nurse. I never want to go through nursing school. God bless you. But I need to understand at least the basics, right? I need to understand what procedures are going to be done in this room. I need to understand what the nurse does in that room. If I'm building an OR for Dr. Belfort, how many people are you really going to have in here, Dr. Belfort? How many scopes are we really going to stick in here, right? How big does my table need to be? Does my monitor that you're actually looking at your ultrasound need to be up here so that 30 different people can see it, as opposed to on the actual ultrasound when somebody steps in front of it, you can't see it, okay? You've got to be able to ask those types of questions and put yourself in the clinician's shoes, okay? It doesn't make sense, right? If this doesn't make sense, if that doesn't make sense. You can also then do that from the patient's perspective as well. And in a children's hospital, I realize not all of you come from a children's hospital, but it's a little bit different, okay? Biomed in the children's hospital, I actually take care of Xboxes. Like, we have medical equipment that is an Xbox. All right? I have to think like a kid, right? So I can't put my little bar for my Xbox Connect at 6 feet off the ground because the poor little 4-foot kid has got to jump up 2 feet to actually hit the sensor to play their game, right? You can't do that. You really have to understand what the workflow is, what the kids are doing, to go ahead and build anything. So before the technology even comes in, before you even think about what you're integrating, you really have to put yourself in their place and walk a mile in their shoes to understand what they need, all right? They've got to be at that table. That collaboration has got to be there to develop that concept, to move in the direction that we're all going in. So that's really important, I think, from our perspective.